So many cameras. This is the press conference. Roll your cameras now, please. You should all now be recording. Are we all recording? I'm not seeing tally lights up the back. You're not recording. Recording? I want you to record.
Just 1 second out. Anyone else having trouble?
It's recording. You're okay. You're not recording. Handheld do. I can't see a tally light on. And I can't see, yeah, your tally light's on. That's the red light at the front. That lets me know the camera is on. Yep, on. Okay, so particularly for the two radio mic cameras, but for everybody else, this is the press conference, and this clap will give us a sync of sound. You stay in shot. I'll do it again. Pathetic. Okay, there's a number of claps there that should sync sound. Are we all set to go? Can I have an answer of yes, please? Yes. Thank you. This is Professor Alex Blazinski, who's going to talk to us today about a new program to help people who have problems with gambling in New South Wales clubs. The first question is going to come from the front row. Over to you, ladies.
I have a quick question about the science of detection. So how do you actually detect like addiction for like high rollers, for example? So in the case of maybe Mr. Chiatek Leng, the Singapore case study, it was very difficult because he could afford to lose that money. So how do you suggest we could better the framework?
That's a good question. It's difficult to identify individual cases, but there are clear indicators that research have shown identify people who are at potential risk. And these include duration of gambling, so people who gamble in excess of 6 hours, 12 hours, up to 24 hours per day. People who play multiple machines, people who continually go to ATMs to withdraw money. So these are quite clear indicators. With the high rollers, it becomes more difficult to detect, but you can identify emotions when they're becoming distressed, angry at the machine, or displacing a lot of the anger towards staff.
With your new program that you're implementing at the moment, how will it be different from the current RCG, and what aspects of the RCG are inadequate at the moment?
Right. The current RGC programs are directed more towards compliance with regulations. So they're informing staff about the requirements, the legislation, underage gambling and so forth. So that's one important component, so that they don't breach regulatory compliance and end up before the courts. The second training really is to inform people about what constitutes problem gambling, to get them an understanding essentially of what their patrons, their customers are, and who is most likely to experience problems with gambling. The gap in the knowledge is that they don't teach them the actual skills to identify and then to approach individuals. The current legislation requires staff to respond to if someone approaches them, but this in fact is ineffective because many customers don't want to approach staff and sort of disclose that they have a problem. So what we're looking at is a proactive customer support service where we're actually training the venue staff to identify the key signs, and then to move in and respond appropriately in a destigmatizing way to deal with the issues. Yes?
Okay, so this program, if effective, will reduce the public's expenditure on gambling. So how will this align with the interests of clubs, pubs and slot machine owners?
Yeah, that's a very important question, because there is a tension across all responsible gambling measures, because the assumption is that the problem gamblers provide a disproportionate amount of the revenue to venues, and the responsible gambling strategies are designed to reduce the revenue of those particular individuals on the assumption that revenue is the source of predominant harms. So what we're looking at, and what the industry and the government is realising, is that in order to have a sustainable industry, what we want to do is to eliminate the harms associated with gambling and have people gamble within affordable limits over a longer time period. The loss to revenue effectively is that problem gamblers will end up leaving the gambling environment, and they're then customers lost to the service. So what they want to do is ensure a sustainable long-term industry. Yes?
How does the program take into consideration the well-being of staff when dealing with distressed patrons?
Well, part of the training program really is peer support from two levels. One is debriefing among staff themselves so that they communicate with each other and provide reinforcement in terms of what they're doing and ensuring that they have the right approaches and right support. Secondly, we're influencing senior management to provide recognition and support for particular customers who do intervene with staff. This is an important barrier because many of the staff are concerned that if they approach a customer and the customer is upset and leaves the venue, then the management is going to come down and criticise them, and it may compromise their promotions or their employment. So we're working actively to shift the culture among senior management to accept the fact that there will be a reduction in revenue. There may be some customers who are upset, but in the longer term, the overall benefits are a long-term sustainable industry. Yes?
Politicians and political parties get a portion from their election funds from gambling operators, and a lot of states are also benefiting from the taxes from gambling operations as well. How do you think should government intervene in terms of gambling addiction, since it's quite prevalent with amongst Australians?
It's an important question because the government itself dictates the gambling environment through its legislation in approving particular forms of gambling. It also regulates gambling and is also the beneficiary of gambling. So one of the important elements effectively is to establish independent authorities that would look towards a balance between the appropriate promotion and advertising and allocation of these particular products to the community, at the same time ensuring that the harms are minimised. Some forms of gambling do provide substantive community benefits. For example, the Opera House Lottery, the Harbour Bridge lotteries were all allocated towards quite considerable benefits. The horse race industry provides substantive employments, and effectively people enjoy these particular activities, as witnessed by the Melbourne Cup and the Spring Carnivals and so forth. So it's that particular balance between providing a product that the majority of people enjoy recreationally, but that the harms are associated with a small percentage of individuals. The back.
When a staff is conducting a schools, will it cause some potentially degrees of physical violence or physical conflict to the gamblers? And what would you do to solve the conflict?
There would be some conflicts, and this is where the training comes in terms of anger management, de-escalating situations, ensuring that crisis situations don't escalate. Fortunately, people who are within venues ought not to be intoxicated, so with the responsible service of alcohol, you're ensuring that people aren't going to be at risk for aggressive behaviours. But it's certainly true that some people are going to be angry that they've lost money. They're going to displace that anger onto staff in the particular venue, and so it's a matter of training people in anger management and de-escalating these particular situations. And again, staff safety is paramount, and if there is any aggressive type behaviours, then the instructions are to ring 000 and call the police immediately.
So the size and the nature of the club can be extremely different from the biggest clubs to smaller clubs. Does the program individualise those situations, or is it a more one-size-fits-all approach?
No, we have to take into consideration that there are differences between the large, what I would call more impersonal clubs, which are large number of customers, large number of staff and constant movement, compared to the rural ones in particular, or the smaller clubs where the venue staff gain familiarity and know these particular patrons. So quite often the smaller clubs are able to identify potential problems easier and quicker than others, but at the same time we need to break that barrier of staff approaching someone they know and trying to deal with those particular issues. So there are differences between those particular size and nature of the venues, and the staff training identifies that, in addition to multicultural groups and what does gambling represent to particular different groups and the patterns of gambling across those multicultural groups.
Yeah, so usually the addiction and depressed, they should ask for help from the psychologist. So how to make sure the staff can do the help for these kind of people?
Right. The important element here effectively is that the staff are not counsellors or clinicians or diagnosticians. Their role effectively is to identify someone that they think might be a problem, escalate it to the next level of management, team leaders, floor staff who have got more expertise, and then those people can interact with them in a friendly manner and communicate the fact that if they do have a problem, provide them with the information of where to get assistance and referral. And that is supplemented by additional material within the venues indicating referral centres, gamblers helpline and other facilities that they may wish to use.
What research methods have you used to test the suitability of the new program?
Okay. What we're doing at the moment effectively is to do the literature review, identify the components of treatments that are purported to be effective. There's 11 studies that have evaluated these particular staff training in different jurisdictions in different contexts. And then what we're doing effectively is to take 3 venues. We're going to train those particular staff in those venues and then match them against a control group of 3 venues, similar in nature, location and demographics, and then follow staff and patrons over a period of 2 months as a pilot study. Identify how effective it is, where we need improvements, and then the next step is to implement the rollout to a much larger number and do a longer term evaluation. And what we're looking at effectively is the number of incidents being reported, the job satisfaction among staff, peer support with staff, senior management support, customer satisfaction, and a reduction in people reporting problems associated with excessive gambling.
Will it be mandatory, or do they have to invite the training to be held?
At the moment, the only mandatory requirement is for staff to be trained in responding to people when they're approached. What we've argued with the clubs, and quite successfully, and this initiated the particular program, is that what we need to do is to destigmatise the issues of problem gambling by talking about customer experiences within the venue. Talking about the overall customer experience will provide a window of opportunity to discuss gambling problems and more likely for the customer to actually reveal any particular problems. And so it's a proactive customer support supplemented by messages located around the venue, encouraging staff to talk to patrons and patrons to talk to staff.
So who's paying for all this?
The clubs have provided a donation to a gift of deed to the university. And it's up to us effectively to develop the program and to evaluate it.
There seems to be a strong conflict of interest between the funding agencies and maybe the clubs themselves, because they actually receive huge amounts of commissions from bringing people in to play with whatever they choose to. So how could you provide the incentive for these companies to be on board with this?
The evidence indicates that participation rates in gambling, particularly electronic gaming machines, is decreasing from 65% down to about 55%. Revenue is increasing or remaining